Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a massive challenge that's completely flipping the script on conservation, and we're going to do it by looking at India's absolutely incredible natural world.
So how do you protect a forest that refuses to stand still? Seriously, think about it. This isn't some philosophical riddle. It's a real, urgent question that conservationists in India, and honestly, all over the world, are grappling with right now. Why? Because climate change is literally forcing the ecosystems we're trying so hard to save to, well, pack their bags and move.
All right, Section 1, a world on the move. To really get what's going on, you have to start with this one big idea. We're living in the Anthropocene. It's a whole new chapter for Earth, where human activity has become the main driver of change on the entire planet.
You see, for so long, our whole approach to conservation was built on one simple assumption, that nature is stable. That if we just left it alone, it would pretty much stay the same. Well, that world is gone. It just doesn't exist anymore. Human-caused climate change has totally thrown that idea out the window. And this isn't just one more problem on the pile. It's a game changer. It's a fundamental shift that takes all those old challenges, like habitat loss, and cranks the difficulty up to 11.
So that brings us to our next point. The museum is closing. This is a great way to think about it. For decades, our mindset was to treat nature like a museum. You find a beautiful, pristine ecosystem and you put a big glass case around it, freeze it in time. This whole approach was based on this scientific idea of stationarity, basically the belief that things will stay put if we just protect them.
And this belief system gave us a very clear set of rules, our old playbook. Rule number 1, draw a line on a map, call it a national park, and assume everything inside is safe forever. Rule 2, when you restore a habitat, the goal is to turn back the clock, make it look exactly like some perfect historical photograph. And Rule 3, we got really focused on saving the big, famous species, the tigers, the elephants, in those specific walled-off places.
But here's the problem. Climate change just completely shatters every single one of those assumptions. It creates this huge mismatch between what we believed and what's actually happening. So we thought species would be fine inside our fixed parks? Nope. They're on the move, heading for the hills or north, just trying to find a climate they can survive in. We thought we could restore things to the way they were in the past. Well, the climate of the past doesn't exist anymore, so that's an impossible target. And we focused on saving the tiger right here in this one park. The trouble is, the entire ecosystem that the tiger depends on is starting to unravel.
Okay, so here's the bottom line. We just can't keep using the old tools. The world has changed. It demands a totally new way of thinking about this. It's a huge paradigm shift. We have to stop trying to prevent change from happening, because we can't, and start learning how to guide it.
And this new way of thinking has a name, dynamic management. It's a total flip in perspective. Instead of fighting this losing battle to keep things exactly as they were, the goal is to work with the change that's already happening. It's all about building resilience, making sure that nature is flexible and strong enough to keep functioning, even as the world around it transforms.
And I love this quote because it gets to the heart of it. Think of it as protecting the stage instead of the actors. This is such a great way to understand the shift. The old way, we were obsessed with the actors, saving this one specific tiger or that particular bird. The new way says, wait a minute, what if we focus on protecting the stage itself? The land, the soil, the geology, all the fundamental stuff. Because if the stage is healthy and stable, it can support life, right? Even if the cast of actors changes over the years.
Here's another great analogy for you. It's the difference between trying to preserve a frozen pond and managing a living, flowing river. You could spend all your energy trying to keep that pond frozen solid, right? Fighting off the sun every single day. Or you could accept that water is meant to flow, and instead you focus on managing the riverbanks, guiding its path and just making sure the whole system, the river, stays healthy and alive. That right there is dynamic management.
Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but what does it actually look like in practice? Let's get into the new conservation playbook, the key strategies for building a more resilient India.
So this new playbook really stands on 4 main pillars, and they're all connected. First, we have to reimagine our parks. Stop thinking of them as lonely, static islands and start seeing them as a connected, dynamic network. Second, we need to connect the landscapes between those parks, building corridors so wildlife can actually move. Third, when we restore ecosystems, we need to focus on what will work for the future, not just what it looked like in the past. And maybe most importantly, fourth, we have to integrate people and nature. It's not one or the other. You have to do them all together. That's how you get a system that can actually bounce back.
A really big piece of this puzzle is something called managing the matrix. It sounds complicated, but it's not. The matrix is simply all the land between the protected areas. You know, the farmland, the villages, the patches of forest. As animals and plants are forced to migrate, they have to cross this matrix. So we have to make it safer for them. This means building wildlife corridors or creating little stepping stone habitats. Think of it like this. You're making sure an elephant can actually get from one patch of forest to another without getting trapped in a park that's no longer a good home for it.
And this way of thinking leads to this incredibly powerful idea called Ecosystem-Based Adaptation, or EBA. It's a total win-win. The core idea is just so smart. When we protect nature, nature helps protect us from the impacts of climate change. For example, you protect mangrove forests along the coast, well, those mangroves act as a natural barrier that protects communities from bigger storms. You restore a watershed, you're securing a clean water supply for people downstream. It's a beautiful way to show that saving biodiversity and helping people aren't separate goals. They're the same goal.
And this is absolutely crucial. This new approach finally recognizes something we should have known all along. You just can't separate people from nature. It's impossible. So for conservation to actually work, it has to be a social process, not just a scientific one. That means we have to bring local communities to the table from the very beginning. It means we have to respect and integrate their traditional ecological knowledge, the centuries of wisdom that people have about their own land. And we have to make sure that whatever we do, the outcomes are fair for everyone involved. So the big question is, how do we turn this crisis into a real opportunity? How do we make this vision a reality? Well, it's a huge undertaking for sure, but there is a clear agenda for the future. And that agenda really has two parts that have to work hand in hand: research and policy. On the research side, we've got to get smarter. We need better models to predict where species are going to move. We need to blend what ecologists know with what social scientists know. And on the policy side, we have to be bold. We need to rewrite old laws that are holding us back, that are too rigid for this new reality. And we absolutely have to start investing in these nature-based solutions as if they were critical infrastructure, because they are.
When you boil it all down, this is what it comes to. The real question isn't if our ecosystems are going to change. They are. That's a given. The real question is, how are we going to respond? How will we guide that change? Trying to stop it is like trying to stop the tide from coming in. It's pointless. The real test for us, for our generation, is whether we can learn to adapt alongside nature and help shape a future where we can all thrive together.
So, can India's crisis become a blueprint for the rest of the world? I think so. Look, the challenges India is facing are just immense, there's no doubt about it. But so is the opportunity. If India can truly embrace this new, dynamic playbook, if they can get this right, they won't just be saving their own incredible natural heritage. They'll be creating a model, a blueprint for resilience that could literally help guide the entire world as we all face this exact same challenge. It's a huge responsibility, but also an incredible chance to lead.